Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another brand new 2022 Safari LTD release to take a look at, and this might be their best figure that they have had come out in years, in my opinion. This is the Zuul, and man, is this ever a gorgeous release from Safari LTD. First of all, this is the only Zuul figure I've ever seen, so that is great. It's straight away immediately awesome to have a brand new species to enter into our collections, and Safari LTD took this figure and totally knocked it out of the park, I think. The sculpt is fantastic and incredibly accurate, and the paint job as well is fantastic. And I really think they did a great job of applying some nice washes and everything to this one to add such a beautiful element of realism to the figure and the paint job overall. Of course, this was sent to me a little bit early to take a look at with you guys from Safari LTD, so I want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to them for being incredibly kind in doing that, sending this over early for us to take a look at. And if you are interested in picking this figure up or any other Safari LTD figures, I want to take a minute and just let you guys know that I do have a discount code here that is exclusive to my channel. If you use the code Andy at checkout, you will save yourself 15% off on this or any other Safari LTD figure that you are interested in ordering. But again, I cannot even begin to stress to you guys how nice this figure is. Like, look at that. That is absolutely beautiful. The sculpt is fantastic. And the paintwork, even though it's nice and simple, is so well done and so natural looking on the figure as a whole. So let's go ahead, jump straight to a closer look at this gorgeous Zuul figure. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Zuul, you can see that is a beautiful head sculpt with some very, very nice looking scale detail, and the armored areas are all really nicely done as well. I love the greenish coloration for the Zuul. It's very appealing to the eye, and they've done a very good job of adding in really subtle color difference you almost can't even pick up on. Like, you can see the head's a bit of a darker green up here compared to the lighter green here on the side of the face, and you'll see that through the course of the entire figure. I think, again, Safari did an expert job on painting this one and making it look really nice, lifelike, and realistic. And within the armored areas of our dinosaur, you can see that, first of all, they're painted very nicely, but those as well have been given a wash, kind of like a grayish wash, which just highlights that detail and really makes that detail stand out to you very nicely. You can see the nostrils there on the snout of the dinosaur. The beak is also painted with the same coloration that you see through the course of the figure when it comes to the spikes and armor and everything. And you can see the mouth is in an open position. The inside of the mouth does sport the tongue, even though right now it's probably, actually there you can see it. Probably a little hard to see, but the tongue is present on the inside of the mouth, and it's all painted in there with a very, very dark tone of like a dark red or a purple. It's a little hard to see it in there, but it looks really nice. You also have the eye that has that same similar coloration that we see on like the spikes and everything there. Has that same coloration that kind of borders around the eye, and then the eye itself is a black coloration. Has a bit of a nice gloss coat there to it, so it shines like real eyes would. And as you continue to move through the course of the figure, you can again see how nice the scale detail looks, as well as the detailing within the spikes that you can see there. You can see like cracks and crevices within the spikes, again all brought out beautifully with the dark wash they've given that area. As you move down the course of the leg, you kind of see like a little bit of an armored look there running down the leg, kind of like clusters of almost osteoderms running down the leg of the dinosaur, leading down to the foot sculpt. The foot sculpt looks beautiful, and you can see that they've dry brushed very nicely some light greens in certain areas over top of like the toes specifically, which is the area we're looking at right now. You can see the nails are also painted. And then as you move back up here to the stomach region, you can see the color gets a little bit lighter in the stomach region right there, as you have a slightly different shade of color. But it's all really nicely applied with like a wash and dry brushing and everything, that it really pops on the sculpt. And the scale detail looks absolutely gorgeous through the figure, through the entire figure, honestly. Like, there is just no ceasing when it comes to the fantastic detailing of this dinosaur. You can see more kind of clusters of like armored type of areas and osteoderms back here. As you move down, you can see a very different look for the scales compared to the thigh to the calf. Like, it gets so fine when it comes to the scale detail down there in the calf. And again, some alternate tones of color. Like, you can see a slightly different green there in the front of the shin of the dinosaur leading down the course of the leg. That calf muscle is very nicely big and bulging. Same deal for the thigh. You can definitely pick out some muscle definition up there. And then as you lead down into the foot sculpt, You have a very nicely sculpted out foot with some scoots running down the toes. There is a little random area of white coloration on mine. I don't know what that's about because there's no white coloration, I don't think, on this figure at all. So I don't know where that came from. I'm really not, maybe it's from the numbers there on the underside of the foot, but I wouldn't think so. I'm not really sure where that came from, but you can see the nails are also very nicely painted there on the ends of the toes. And then as you lead back up here into the tail, you can again see kind of like some skin wrinkles and stuff here on the underside, as well as some more fantastic scale detail leading out the length of the tail. The tail has a really nice kind of a bend to it, but it's not a drastic bend, just a nice casual bend there to the tail of the dinosaur. But you can also see again the spikes running down the length of the tail. Look at how nice that detail is highlighted with that darker wash that's been applied. And you can see the club here at the end of the tail has that same beautiful dark wash really highlighting the detail, and that again makes that detail just jump out at you out there and look so lifelike and realistic, kind of giving it a little bit of a dirty look, which I really do like, because of course your dinosaur is not going to be squeaky clean. That's just not the way it would have worked. And you can see on the opposing side, again, the head looks great. The dinosaur has its head turned slightly in a right-leaning position. And then as you lead back, you can see the front legs are almost in the same positioning as the dinosaur. Kind of looks like maybe it's just stopping, maybe to take a bite to eat. And since the mouth is open, that kind of makes sense if you ask me. But you can see again that the leg sculpt looks great over here, just like it did on the initial side. Beautifully sculpted out toes and very nicely painted nails. And then leading back up here into the stomach region, you can see a little bit more of the stomach on this side compared to what we saw on the initial side, because this leg here is trailing a little bit, but not honestly by all that much. But you can again see that lighter tone of color in the mid-stomach area, kind of like a brownish version of color that we have there. And you can again see that the detailing is really nicely highlighted with dark washes as well as some beautiful dry brushing throughout. The leg looks again pretty much the same over here, but you can see a really nice bend in the toes as the leg is lifting up off of the ground, and very nice looking scoots down the toes again over here, and then leading back up into the tail. The tail is not going to look all that different compared to what we saw on the initial side, because the turn here in the tail isn't that drastic enough to really cause any type of a different appearance. You can see that the underside though has lots of skin wrinkles and skin folds throughout, as well as again a beautiful lighter tone of green and a nice dark wash applied, highlighting all of the detail throughout. You can even see the throat here on the underside of the dinosaur. And then looking up here at the top, again you could see, like I was saying earlier, where there's just like some really slight variations of darker tones of green, and you can kind of see how it just transitions back and forth through the entire figure here on the upper side. And look at how nice that scale detail just absolutely jumps out at you on the back of the Zuul. And you can also see again how nice the armored areas look as far as the paintwork and the beautiful dark wash that's been applied. What a really, really beautiful figure. Easily, again, one of my, I would say probably at this point, all-time favorite Safari LTD figures. It is honestly that nice and that impressive here in person. Such a fantastic release from Safari LTD for their 2022 year. As far as a size goes, this one is a bit on the smaller side. For a length, you were looking at right around 6.5 inches or about 16.5 centimeters. You're really not going to get much for a height, as it is a pretty low dinosaur, but you're looking at about 1.5 inches or bordering on 4 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is the Safari LTD Feathered Tyrannosaurus Rex, the Dino Dana paint variant, next to our Zuul, and you can definitely see that there is a massive size difference between these two figures. The Safari LTD Rex is a lot larger than our Zuul. But for another size comparison, we've actually got two more that we'll bring in here. We also used these two in the recent Albertosaurus review, and you can see again two more really popular releases from Safari LTD. I think that Dinosaur, that is definitely one of my favorite figures from Safari LTD, I would say, like of all time. That thing is just majestic. But as well is the Zuul here that you could see. So we've got two of my favorites actually now right here in front of us. But again, two figures here, like I said, that are pretty popular, I think, amongst the Safari LTD crowd, that would probably help to give you a good idea of the fact that the Zuul is a bit smaller. And then, since I actually had him out for the Albertosaurus review, I'll bring him in again. But there is the older Albertosaurus from Safari LTD, and giving you a good idea of the size next to the Zuul. That was a pretty small figure, I would say, for Safari LTD. Not super small, but you could definitely see like it's not too much larger than our Zuul. And then for another comparison, here is the Safari LTD Sarcosuchus next to our Zuul. again helping to give you a pretty good idea of the size. And then for one final comparison, there are all three of the most recent Safari LTD releases, as we have the Nanotyrannus, the Albertosaurus, and then of course our Zuul next to those others there, helping to give you an idea of how they all size up next to each other. The Albertosaurus is a little bit more further forward than the Nanotyrannus, so we'll bring him up and again help to give you a pretty good idea of how they all size up next to each other. So this brand new 2022 Safari LTD Zuul is a gorgeous release. Like, in my opinion, is definitely my favorite of the three newest. And it's really hard to say that over that Albertosaurus, because the Albertosaurus is just about as drop dead gorgeous as it gets. But this Zuul is just so impressive, if you ask me. The sculpt is fantastic. No matter where you look at it, that Zuul is loaded with gorgeous scale detail, as well as just in general beautiful fine detail throughout, like the cracks and crevices through the course of the spikes and armored areas and everything. It just looks so good when it comes to the fine detail. I love the positioning of the dinosaur as well, with just a nice kind of slight turn to the tail, slight turn to the head, slightly different positioning for the legs, as it looks like maybe it's about to take a bite to eat or something along those lines. The paintwork is also beautiful, if you ask me. Like, it's really nice and simple with just like mostly just greenish tones, and then you have some slight hints of variations of browns throughout, and then you have, you know, some color for the spikes there, kind of with like a slight variation of kind of like a light brown, and it looks so good. The color plays off of each other really nicely. They did a fantastic job of adding in the dark wash, which I love when companies add dark washes to their figures. And again, this is a prime example of why, because it really pays off on this figure. It just gives a little bit more depth, I think, to the paint job, and just really highlights the detail beautifully. But they've also done a good job of dry brushing certain areas out, and also adding in some ever so slight different tones of color that I can pick up on when you have it out in a nice light. That as well just adds another level of realism to the figure that I absolutely love. So undoubtedly, this is my favorite Safari LTD release for this year, and definitely one of my favorites of all time. So if you are interested in this, keep checking back to the Safari LTD website for when this does officially come into stock, so you can pick it up, and make sure when it does come into stock you use the code Andy at checkout so you can get yourself a discount of 15% off of this figure when you are interested in picking it up when it is officially in stock on the Safari LTD website. So again, a huge thank you to Safari LTD for sending this over, as well as giving us that awesome discount code. And make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.